All right. How's it feel to not be the modern day Drake or Charles Barkley?
Boy, Big O, what a glorious Wednesday morning. I don't even know. Yeah, it is Wednesday morning. It is today after the Panthers won the Stanley Cup. And as a Dolphins beat writer, I'm just very glad and enthused to have some experience covering a championship quality team that now I can one day take to cover the Dolphins Super Bowl run when that happens.
Is this your first, like, being in a championship? By the way, but you guys never were in the locker room with them spraying champagne or anything, right?
No, they take us onto the ice where they have their family around after the Stanley Cup is hoisted around. So it's not like the champagne everywhere. Not
So
like
David, they don't do that anymore, right? They don't really do that anymore. They don't allow the media in the locker room. Like, in '97, the Marlins are celebrating. They're throwing champagne in the locker room. I'm in there a lot with all the media. I'm pulling players aside to get interviews with my cassette player, Huizenga, you name it, everybody. I interviewed everybody. And I'm getting sprayed with champagne, and so is Huizenga. They're pouring it on his head and shit. All that shit is going on. And in the Heat, I remember in '06, I was in the locker room and they're all spraying the champagne all over the place. Jason Williams is screaming, "They said I was a problem. They said I was a problem. What about now? What about now?" And I'm watching UD cry and shit, and Alonzo Mourning and all that kind of shit. And I don't think they allow the media anymore in the middle of the fray. Do they?
At least not in the NHL. I'm trying. I mean, I did cover the home games of the finals between the Heat and Nuggets. That was a couple years ago. Obviously, there was no celebration there, but not in Miami, at least for Denver. But I feel like we don't see those as much anymore. Those shots.
Yeah.
Though they would still be provided by the team, if anything, though. But
no, for the players, yes. But what I'm saying is media being
right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, as far as like seeing those shots from media members that captured them.
I don't think that happens anymore, dude. I don't think that happens anymore. It's kind of shame how much more sterile that part has become. But anyway, let's get back to this. Just an amazing feat, dude. To watch the domination. We were just talking about how they led for like 250 minutes and like the other team led for like 30 minutes or something in the damn series. Just it just didn't seem like a 4-2 series.
No, that's what happens when you have one team who wins 2 games in overtime. One of them on a very flukish goal where Leon Draisaitl isn't even really trying to score to shoot, and he just deflects it off Nico Michalo's skate into the net. And then the Panthers, you have them winning 3 of their 4 wins by several goals. We have a 5-1 win, a 6-1 win, and what was the other one? 5-2. So. They did have one overtime winner as well. Brad Marchand providing the heroics in Game 2 in Edmonton. But really, and the difference was because this is how you establish a stat like leading for 255 minutes in a series is they scored early and often. They had at least 2 goals in every first period of the game. I was astonished to hear that. Even as I was covering the games, I was like, wait a minute, is that right? They've had 2 goals every first period, and they had 2 and then in one case 3. So that's how you play with a lead for most of the game. It's you score early and that often, and the Panthers jumped on top early in games and for the most part held on to the leads. But obviously there were a couple. It is hockey, and sometimes another team can get one and then eventually win it in overtime. So that's why it did drag on to 6. But the Panthers truly dominated, not like a true 4-2 series.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. And again, we were talking about this last night. When the Heat were at the end of their run, it looked like the end of their run because Wade was already on one knee. And so, LeBron was kind of like, all right, this team's kind of breaking down. I'm on my way out of here. Let me get out of here. And so, you know, Ray Allen was already an older player. What more were you going to get a Battier, all that kind of stuff? So you were kind of on the brink of ending this whole when the Marlins did it. It was one team that did it, and then you broke it up, and then the next time they did it 6 years later, it was a young team, but you had a cheap owner, and you really couldn't keep it together, so it was gone. This is like something that is in the middle of it. You're not. I'm not going to say you're just starting because that's ridiculous, but you're kind of in the middle of it, and you're really not anywhere near the end. Why? Your stars are all in their prime, dude. That's crazy. That's really, really, except maybe the goalie. And if you bring back Marchand, but most of your like lead guys, they're really in the prime of their careers, not the twilight of their careers. Like, let's say Wade, Ray Allen, Battier were, they were in the twilight of their career. It's a little different.
Yeah, and this front office and Bill Zito, give them credit. They've also had some fines too. It's not just that okay, they pulled off the ballsy trade of Huberdeau for Kachuk, and that changed the culture, the physicality of the team, made them built to win in the playoffs. But finding a Sam Bennett, finding Gustav Forsling, who was claimed off waivers years ago. I almost liken him to I covered the Dolphins to like Zach Sealer, the way the Dolphins found him as a 2019 waiver claim from the Ravens, and then now he hasn't been an all-star, but he's just sort of been on the fringe of that, and one of the best players at his position. So it's a combination of some core guys that have been around since, like Alexander Barkov is the captain and has been at the core, the foundation of this roster. Aaron Ekblad, who's been here for long, they had Sergei Bobrovsky from back then, and then just finding these other additions when it was either a Bennett, when it was Kachuk, when it was Reinhardt, just recently a few years back. So it's just you keep adding on to it. Now you're bringing a Seth Jones, so it's just all these pieces coming together, and it's a combination of the stars that have been brought in, and sure, yes, like a Brad Marchand at the trade deadline, you make the move that when it presents itself, you just got to do it, and players want to come down here, and you can say everything about the state income tax and obviously wanting to join a champion, but then also it's just smart moves, the economical ones that aren't as easy to find, and this front office has hit.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It is obviously pretty fun to watch. All right, I got to ask you and switch over to a little Dolphins. I see Costa Nostra says, Furones, in your opinion, will the Dolphins keep Jonnu Smith? I guess he's a hopeful Dolphin. I've been telling you he gone. You saw Drew Rosenhaus on Sunday again. Did you hear the word negotiations at all again, by the way? Or did you hear just fluid and in discussions and the same kind of BS? So I ask you now, do you really believe Jonnu Smith is coming back to this team?
Yeah, so I've been hopeful that that's the case because I feel like that is. I'm getting there.
Hopeful they win a Super Bowl, bro. I'm hopeful the Dolphins win the next 5 Super Bowls, bro. I mean, really, seriously, I'm hopeful. Yeah, no reality. Let's go with reality. That's what we live in, not what we hope. There's a lot of things I hope for. I hope I was a millionaire, and I know I never will be one. But go ahead.
No, I was saying that to set it up because I have heard. I'm getting there because I have heard that yes, it's still Jonnu Smith's preference on his end to be with the Dolphins. We heard Mike McDaniel say that yes, he would still like him back, but then I also thought it was telling when the last day of minicamp. Boy, that feels like so long ago for me because I covered games 4, 5, and 6 since that last day. But I asked Mike McDaniel, and among all the adjustments that he's got to make this season, which was one of the stories I wrote from the end of minicamp at sunsentinel.com, how important is the pass-catching tight end in complementing the pursuit of getting the ball to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle again more? And then his answer might have been kind of telling where, hey, it doesn't need to necessarily be the pass catching tight end as we call it. It could be production that you get from what you might label a blocking tight end, but you give him the short passes and he can get yards after catch, which is something that Jonnu Smith does really well, by the way. But it could be any one of the 5 eligible receivers. He doesn't look at it as I need it to be this pass catching tight end dominating the middle. I just need it to be any one of the eligibles. We have 5 eligibles there. Give me other threats that can take the pressure off of Hill and Waddle. So I thought that might have been a little telling, like, hey, it doesn't need to be the tight end. And this offense, frankly, overall was running better in 23 and 22 and getting the ball more to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Actually, when they didn't have Jonnu Smith in there. And that's no knock on Jonnu, of course. Great season he had. But I don't think it necessarily needs to be that way of it's got to be the tight end and to take the pressure off the big play receivers on the outside. So that might have been a little telling, like writing is on the wall. We're prepared for life beyond Jonnu Smith, and we can find ways to get the ball to our receivers without having that big-time Pro Bowl caliber now tight end in Jonnu.
He's gone, dude. He's gone. And let me tell you why. Another thing why he's gone. Let's be honest. Let's talk about what's really going on. And I talked about this yesterday. You know, I just read an article where Jalen Ramsey wasn't even considered a top 10 cornerback anymore. And you're paying him like a top 2 cornerback. Is what you're paying him. And so you're trying to trade a guy that no longer is top 10, no longer dominant, for dominant money. And that just, you know, that's why there is no market for him, actually. Because if anybody's going to take him off your hand, bro, you're going to have to eat a lot of that salary. Now, the opposite is Jonnu Smith. You're not paying him shit. It's a very manageable, reasonable salary. And of course, he wants an extension, but it's not a 5-year extension. You'll probably give him an extra 2 years because it'll be like a 3-year contract that you can get out after the second season. That's what you'll probably do with him, you know, that kind of deal. And so if he fits your system, you're not going to have to break the bank because he's trying to get out. So he doesn't have all the leverage in the world either. You know what I'm saying? So this is a very manageable thing for the Miami Dolphins being able to trade. And notice, did you notice one more time? You got to listen to what they're saying. Did you notice that Drew Rosenhaus said, and I think this will be settled by training camp. Did you hear him say that on Channel 7? I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like that. You heard him, right? Which there he gave you like a clue that there is some progress being made. It's just not with the Dolphins, but he thinks there's enough interest that something will be done by training camp. And now that you're out of all these mini camps, there's no chance of him getting injured. And by the way, did he not practice at the end of that?
What you're saying, mini camp?
Yeah.
Right. Not at mandatory mini camp. Correct.
Right. And so, again, you're as a team, you're not practicing him because you want to make sure he doesn't get injured because you got to trade him. So now as a team that you're acquiring, you don't want to really acquire him now. So there's no hurry. Now is when you want to acquire him before training camp. And that's why Drew said that. So, ladies and gentlemen, expect Jonnu Smith to be traded right before training camp.
I don't think that necessarily means 100% that, because I feel like it could be that. And remember, things are fluid. That means things can change. So, but right before training camp could also mean, all right, we went back to the negotiating table and we figured out a number that both sides are happy with. And now, and you get to that point because the pressure was put on, which Drew Rosenhaus knows. He's a master of doing this. He's done it for so many years, especially down here in South Florida. Drew
Rosenhaus is trying to correct a wrong and make it a right.
Okay? He's trying to get his player paid. You try to
inject hopium into this by telling the fans, well, you know, things can change. No, it's not going to change. And let's be honest here. Drew Rosenhaus negotiated a shitty deal for Jonnu Smith. And that's why he's in this position. And now he has to try to negotiate a much better deal so he can look better. I know you can't say that because, you got to go talk to the guy, call him and all that. I don't give a shit, so I'm going to say it. But yeah, Drew's trying to make a wrong a right is what he's trying to do right now. Anyway.
You can also give, honestly, Chris Greer credit for that signing, which is that's the thing.
He does it all the time. He does it all the time.
Great find. Yeah. And in the NFL, sometimes it's just damned if you do, damned if you don't. You paid Jalen Ramsey all this big money, and now he's going to be gone, and he's not the same cornerback he was when you paid him. But then you make a great signing of Jonnu Smith, great, tremendous value, where you pick him up for a little over 4.2 million per over 2 years, and then he has a Pro Bowl season, so it was a tremendous value signing. But then now he comes forward and says, "Well, I deserve to make more," which from his perspective, absolutely.
They do that all the time. The linebacker in the middle of the season was a freaking fine for them. And he'll come back this year, and if he's as good as he was, you got yourself a nice little player there in the linebacker. The sealer you found,
right?
As much as you hate it, Van Ginkel is a 5th freaking rounder, bro. You know what I'm saying? So they do a great job of finding people. Kader Kohu, who's going to be the top corner on your team. That guy's an undrafted street free agent. They do a really nice job of finding stuff. If Julian Hill can get the farts out of his brain, he's got every ability to do whatever Jonnu did and more, because he's a much better blocker actually than Jonnu. So, that's the crazy part. I understand what they see in Julian Hill, but man, he's got to stop being a screw up. So they do this all the time. Agba was a steal the first couple of years. They got 18 sacks out of it for minimum money. They do a good job of finding stuff. It's just a matter of the balance of let's keep the right players and let the right players go. They're kind of that's the one thing. They have talent coming in. They just got to kind of manage which ones they keep, which ones they don't.
Yeah, I'm with you. Big money that has been sent out to on some regrettable contracts, and that you're stuck with for a long time, and then seeing some guys have success elsewhere. It was a tough situation to manage so many worthy players that you wanted to keep among a roster core, and it's a difficult task in the NFL. But obviously, dropped the ball in identifying which were the ones to proceed with and which were the ones to let walk.
Yeah. Like Tyreek Hill, you got to know when to hold them and when to fold them, bro. And you ended up now tying yourself down to another year with this guy. And the worst part is your entire future's success rides on that dude. That's scary, man. That's scary, David. You want to rely on reliable people. When you have to rely on the unreliable, that's really tough.
Well, at least he won't come away with some hamstring injury from racing Noah Lyles, because now that's canceled. And what was the most predictable thing that it would not happen? I know I tweeted and some people would say, well, it was surprising that Noah Lyles backed out. Well, I just meant like that it wasn't going to happen. Like we never even had a real date for it.
Why does Noah Lyles need this anyways, bro?
He's an Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah, why would he want to associate himself with this guy who is tied with all kinds of shit off the field, bad stuff? If he's going to race somebody, race a quality human being also at the same time and lift them up, not some attention whore. Okay? Because really, I mean, it's kind of what he is. He's an attention whore, and that's all. And that's all he does. He does shit because if he's not getting any attention, brother, he must be probably in some state of depression, unfortunately, or something. It's sad. It really is sad. By the way, somebody sent me something. I haven't even looked it up if it's true. Did he get somebody else pregnant again?
I would not know that.
Somebody sent me that on Twitter right now. Sean, can you look it up if his wild sperm is swimming all over the place again? There. By the way, Jalen Ramsey, the opposite, right? You're paying him an enormous amount of money, and you're not going to be able to dump him. And teams know that he doesn't want to be there, and he's a problem child as it is. If the Dolphins don't eat a lot of his salary, do you see them getting out of this mess? Because this one is a mess. The other one is going to be easy to get out of, but this one is a mess, dude.
Yeah, I mean, actually, as more time progresses, now I'm starting to become worried of what happens if more weeks pass by and you're approaching training camp and you still haven't found a resolution of finding a team for him, finding how much money you need to pony up to send him elsewhere. What, if anything, of value you can get in return, which already wouldn't help you for this year unless it's a player that's involved, because the draft already came and went, so you didn't have any picks come in for trading Jalen Ramsey. So you're right. I mean, a mess is an adequate word. It's an appropriate word to describe what could potentially happen and maybe what's already going on with this Jalen Ramsey situation. So it becomes worrisome the more time passes. I mean, I'm already surprised that it's June 18th and we're still talking about it like with nothing, no kind of like crumbs right now that are just leading us to anything. I thought pretty shortly after June 1st, they might find something, and that was kind of like the magic date, the magic number to get them to pull something off with the salary cap implications. But this is still going, so it's a serious issue to find a team for Jalen Ramsey to go to, and probably has some implications on the inability to give Jonnu Smith the money he's looking for, to sign an outside cornerback to fill that void, because you don't know how much of that salary you're going to have to eat up in order to trade him. So how much do you have available for this cornerback signing that is still on the offseason checklist and whatever Jonnu Smith resolution comes of that situation?
You know, and listen, I'm really surprised that we're still here with Jalen Ramsey, because last time I checked,
Here we go.
Adam Schefter said there was a line like for Bonnie Blue trying to trade for him. I mean, that's what Adam Schefter said. There was a Bonnie Blue like line.
Oh my God, I just got that.
No. What happened? What happened? What happened, Adam? I thought there were a lot of men ready to dive in.
Oh God.
You said it on ESPN. You said, "Hey, there's this, market for Jalen Ramsey." I'm thinking, okay. I personally, of course, was laughing when he said that. I'm like, there's an agent, there's a reporter. Most of these national insiders, I know a little bit about this shit. These guys have to do favors for people, right? And sometimes they have to look bad, and they have to lay on the sword sometimes. So then they're going to give them 15 other great stories, and one of them is just, "Hey, bro, I need some chum in the water," and that's what that was. Because there was no way there was going to be a big line for Jalen Ramsey at that kind of money, bro. Come on. Yo no nací ayer. Okay? I wasn't born yesterday, bro.
I think you made more of that comment than anyone else really took it for. I mean, I feel like it was just like an in passing, like, or there's conversations going, there's phone calls being made, but not that it's to the point of seriousness and an imminent trade.
Papa, you can't have it two ways, because then if something happens on June 2nd, oh hey, I told you there was a lot of action for him. And then when nothing happens, he doesn't mention it at all. Everybody forgets about it. They just don't know anything.
You don't forget.
It's like Rick Sanchez and San Pedro. Eso se olvida. Obviously that happened before you were even born. But that's all right. It's all good, bro. It's all good. Todo se olvida. And I understand that. And I know how this world works. And I get that. And it's kind of like you'll forget about it. You'll forget about it. You'll forget about that I said we're gonna, we'll own the Panama Canal and we're gonna take over Greenland. But you'll forget about it. You just keep going on and you'll just forget about it. That's the way this world works. You know what I mean? But there are some of us that have memories like a effing elephant. And so I kind of, that's why I'm here. That's what I do. You know what I'm saying? So, it's fun. What can I tell you? All right, what do you got going on, the Sun Sentinel? And a great question. What's it feel like, Steven Gonzalez says, to cover a soft team and now cover a tough team?
Okay, I thought it was going to go the route of covering a champion, but well, I'll tell you, covering that
you cover a champion. Now you covered a champion. Tell us there, David Furones.
Yeah, well, as far as the toughness and physicality, you really appreciate how they wear opponents down and how you can see it over the course of a series. Like the Toronto Maple Leaf series, the Toronto starts fast and wins 2 games, but then the Panthers are just pounding them and just they make you not want to be on the ice with them. And then you saw how they just crushed them by the end of that series. This Oilers series, it was these overtime games, and it's great hockey that's coming down to game winners in overtime, double overtime, the first 2 games. And then games 3, 5, and 6, the Panthers dominate. Game 4, they even had a 3-goal lead. Like, they just wear you down over the course of a series. Opponents do not want to play them for a 7-game series, and most of the time don't get to 7 games because the Panthers are finishing you off before then. So that's really what you notice is you just see these cats on the other team. They're just dead. They're cooked by the end of a series with the Panthers, and they're just waving the white flag. So you really appreciate that when you watch it.
It's like an old time Roberto Duran fight. When Duran was in his heyday, he hit you with a mountain of power, but then he also had the skill that he could hang with you at the same time. And when he was in his prime, when he was unstoppable, and that's what the Panthers remind me a lot. They have the power to hang in there with you with their toughness, and then they have the skill to hang with you because when Barkov can do what he did to Connor McDavid, dude, that's some shit. That's some shit. Okay? And that's the problem with the Oilers. That's the problem with Toronto. These are teams that, they have great offensive skill, but they can be tempered with physicality. And then the Panthers just have that perfect combination, man. It's a beautiful. Really
those teams are learning the tough lesson of the Panthers when they won the President's Trophy back in was it 22 now, and then made that trade, got more physical, and we've seen the dividends pay off.
It's interesting when you have the power and physicality of Zonka and Little and Langer and those boys. And then you also have the beauty of Paul Warfield on the outside, and then you have a defense that's called No Name. It's interesting how they used to know the combination of winning because if you watch the Philadelphia Eagles, they can hurt you on the outside with skill, and they can punish you in the middle with their line and their running game. And it's just, and by the way, skill comes out of their tight ends and skill comes out of Saquon too, when he has to catch the ball and be out in the open field, and he can do dynamic shit too at the same time. So it's a combination. And if you don't possess that combination in a lot of sports, hockey and football, you're not going to win. So it's really interesting. It really is. David, as always, thank you, my brother. It is a pleasure. We'll catch up on Friday.
Yes, sir. Sounds good.
You got it. There you go. Welt Rheaume. We thank them. 954-966 4646. We are in hurricane season. A lot of our listeners, unfortunately, yeah, dude, of course I want you to call Welt Rheaume, but I hope you never have to call them. But we're in hurricane season, and we had a lot of our listeners on the West Coast because, as you know, we've been lucky on the East Coast, but on the West Coast, they've been getting pounded. And last year, they got pounded by several storms, and a lot of our listeners called. And don't do it too late, and don't call ever the insurance company. You call Welt Rheaume first. They have their own adjusters. They send them. They assess the damage because the adjusters that work for the insurance company, they work for the insurance company. They work for the insurance company, not for you. Not for you. So you make sure you bring adjusters that work for you, and that's Welt Rheaume. And then they attack the insurance company. You never have to call the insurance company. That is such a burden lifted from you, where you have professionals that know all the laws, all the loopholes. 954-966-4646. You don't need it now. And I hope you never will. But if you do, you call these bulldogs. These guys are badasses. Okay? They've done it for a lot of our listeners already. I'm really happy about that over the last 5 years. 954-966-4646. Bankruptcy, homeowner property damage, condo damage, criminal defense, business owner claims, commercial litigation, personal injury, consultations completely free. Jeff and Dan will take your call, listen to your issue, and they'll tell you if you got a case or not. Welt Rheaume.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.